So plan A, 100% become a race car driver. Plan B, follow plan A.
Welcome to the Details Podcast. I'm Dan Williams, your host, and today, as every time, I have an incredible young man here who is a race car driver. He is an up-and-comer, and he kind of approached this world a little different. Super excited to hop into his story and share him with the world. Mr. Christian Menezes, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are you coming to us from?
Whitby, Ontario, up in Canada, located near the famous motorsport track, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Whichever name you want to call it, hosted Formula One races and just 30 minutes up the road from me.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to lead into how you got to where you are, being around all of these races without even being around the races. Yeah?
That's exactly how it went. No clue up until about 5 years ago that I was right next to such a historic track. But since then, it's become a second home for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I like to for these, I like to jump into the Wayback Machine and go back just a little bit. So one of the things I want to kind of uncover is like where you came from in the racing world and where you're going, obviously. Um, and talk about your relationship with Ralph Hansen Jr. Do you know Ralph Hansen Jr.'s background?
Yes, I do. I recently got in touch with him not too long ago, but of course I did my research, found out a little bit more about him and what he's done for the sport, and specifically IndyCar. It's truly incredible.
Yeah, yeah. He's that's our connection that ties us together, and I've known him for a while. What a really, really stellar person and so many connections in the racing world. So the solid move to sync up with him, I think.
No, 100%. Yeah.
All right. So now let's jump into that Wayback Machine and go back and just start uncovering how you got into the race world. Because most of the guys that I talk to on here, they have come from racing. Maybe their dad or their grandpa. The Garrett Adams that I just he's in on Lamborghini team, and his dad was a racer. Parnelli Jones' grandson. So it's all these people that come from racing, and that makes a pretty easy path for somebody to get into it. But you're 16 years old and you've been racing, and 16 years old is how old you are when you get a driver's license. So we got from not coming from racing, I really want to crack into it. So if you go back and you think about your earliest childhood days, were cars or something like that kind of a central theme that you had going? And this is before you even started to race.
Exactly, yeah. So before I touched a steering wheel, before my feet hit a pedal, it was binge watching Cars at 5, 6, 7 years old, on repeat every day. It was a fundamental part in my childhood. A lot of the memories I still have a lot of little car minifigures and things like that remind me of my childhood. I had a little, one of those mats where you could drive them around and things like that. My parents had videos of it and things like that. So that's kind of a hint on what was to come, but nothing could have predicted the trajectory that took. The really instant that marked the start of my career was a vacation down in Buffalo. And we were in this huge, gigantic mall, and they happened to have a K1 Speed, which is, as most people know, an indoor go-kart track. And I was just barely old enough, just barely tall enough to hop in their youth carts, and got in looking like a bobblehead. And the first couple laps, it was hitting the wall 5, 6, 7 times. The lap after that, maybe once or twice, and the lap after that, I was setting some of the fastest laps there that day. And the second I got out, I had a grin ear to ear, and my parents were like, "So, how'd you like it?" And I just didn't want to leave at all. They had to physically drag me out of that place, out of the mall. And from there, I like wouldn't stop talking about it during the whole vacation, so my parents figured, "Okay, we'll find a way for you to do this closer to home," and just by my luck, I'm 30 minutes from Mosport, which also has a go-kart facility, and then Goodwood Kartways, a very famous old historic go-karting facility, and placed right in the middle between both of those, it was a perfect foundation to get those early, skills and fundamentals of go-kart.
Okay. So so with these little cars, are we talking like Hot Wheels cars?
No, so little when you go to Disney World or something and you'd see, like, a little Lightning McQueen, a little glass windowsill or something, I had a bunch of those at home, and that was basically the only toys I used to play with. Even when I had, like, a Nintendo Wii or something, it'd be some kind of a racing game, like, remember a Hot Wheels one, Mario Kart was my wheelhouse, used to play my mom all the time in that, and things like that. Just there's not really a reason behind what fascinated me, it just immediate hook to it and, loved it from the get-go.
Yeah. And, you know, I a lot of people, because 'cause I've interviewed people for years here, and a lot of the people who are the most successful, they find their passion early on in life, and then they just lock onto it like a pit bull on a rope toy for the rest of their life, and those are the people who are the most successful, so really, really cool. And at first, so when you're playing with your cars and you're watching the cars, and are you thinking, "I wanna be a race car driver," or were you just thinking cars are cool and that's gonna be my freedom someday? Or what was the thought behind all of that?
Well, since I'm 6 years old, I think it was the atmosphere of it, seeing a bunch of cars going by, flying by, and my parents didn't think of much of it at the time, they're just like, "Okay, it's a way to keep him distracted for a little bit while we can work," but no, it was definitely, um clicked right away, and the sensation of seeing the cars go by, obviously, it's meant for a kids show, but just the sensation, the fire that it started in me, nothing else had gotten to that point. So, from an early on stage, it was a clear, pathway for me that being a race car driver could be a cool thing and being like Lightning McQueen.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so you get to the K1 place, and that is a really fun place to go. Here's what I'm surprised at when I go there. Like, my arms are, like, really tired after. Maybe I'm holding it too tight or and not hitting the wall, incredible. Like, it took me until I actually looked at the chart that they have on the wall of where you're supposed to go around the track, and, hey, that does make a big difference. I always thought that that, like, turtleback thing, we're not supposed to go over that, but apparently you're supposed to kinda cut in, and that's where you're supposed to be. Really so you were just, like, out there just hammering around the track. How did and none of that really came into play at that point, right?
Exactly, yeah, like, nothing that day was related to racing, hitting your apexes, just simple things that a normal race car driver would think about. Obviously, I'm around 8 years old and not thinking of that, and my parents just thought it'd be a fun thing to do, on a Saturday afternoon. But no, the second I got out there, it was things that I didn't even know how to do, I was doing, and just immediately clicked for me. And like I said, I was setting fastest laps of the day, fastest laps of the weeks without even thinking about what I was doing. I was just trying to go as fast as I can, a little bit of that Lightning McQueen headspace. But no, it was right from the get go, uh, a lot of fun and immediately clicked for me.
So cool, so cool, and there you go. That's you found that passion early. So, have you played other sports, at 16 years old, like in high school or coming up, baseball, hockey, football, any of that kinda stuff?
So, funny enough, a lot of my friends and peers and things like that, all of them played hockey. As an average Canadian, that's our home sport. Everyone loves it. Toronto Maple Leafs, go Leafs. But no, I can't even skate. I played a lot of soccer when I was younger and a little bit of baseball. But apart from that, it was just kind of a summer house league thing. Like nothing was set in stone that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was kind of just pastime. But the second racing came around and I was given that opportunity to race that during the summer, this was my passion, like, just engraved in my brain at the age of 8. This is what I wanna do as much as I can and however many times I can.
And that's really interesting because if we think about it, like the other sports, playing hockey, big hockey fan myself too. Um, those are team sports, right? So you've got your friends that are on the team and all this stuff. As you start stepping into racing, at least at that very, very early age, it's a very solo kind of sport. It's you and your parents. When your friends were all getting on teams and leagues and stuff like that, how did it play out for you? Did you start making those connections with other drivers as a child?
So during my ride and drive stages, honestly, I know it's not a good thing, but it was kinda put in my head that this isn't a real sport. This is just kind of a for fun thing, so at a young age, that's kind of what I thought it was, just a recreational thing, and when I heard all of my other friends talking about, "Hey, I joined this hockey team," or "got signed for this, baseball team," and it's like, "Oh, that's great," but, like, it's kind of hard to relate that way, but the more I've been engulfed in the motorsports world, it's 100% a team sport. There's no one driver climbing up the ranks. There's a whole team of either sponsors or people behind the scenes that make everything happen and have all the pieces fall together. Um, but no, like seeing all my friends go the hockey route, rugby, baseball, when I talk to them about what their goals is in that sport, it's just kind of a for fun thing, a way to get into a good college or a good university. But when I'm given the opportunity to talk about like my experiences with racing, it's less about the route of getting a good college or university. It's I want a career in this sport and it's 100% feasible.
Now you're 16 years old. Do you have your regular driver's license?
Just got my G2 3 weeks ago, so enjoying that.
And so what kind of a car does a young man like yourself drive to start out with?
So, obviously, as much money as we can put forward to my racing, that's every penny that I get from my job, everything like that goes towards my racing. So, I don't have my own personal car, but my parents do have a Kia Soul, which I've ripped occasionally on a track day, and then a Jeep Cherokee. So, nothing flashy, nothing that obviously you'd expect a race car driver to be driving daily. Um, but no, it's all the sacrifice of doing what's best for your career, and if that means hanging on to Kia Soul for a little bit longer to fund your racing, that's what you gotta do.
Heck yeah, eventually you'll be sponsored by one of these companies and they'll be giving you cars. So if you could grab any car you wanted though, because we've established that you're super into cars since a very young age, obviously. What kind of car are you picking up? If you get they're like, Christian, pick a car.
That's such a hard choice, if I'm a little bit biased, but, GT4 RS, Porsche, that would be a car that if I were to get that actually, I should say, when I get that one day, I've made it. Like, it's nothing else to achieve. That's my dream car, and I know it's not as flashy as, like, let's say, GT3 RS and things like that, but, no, I've driven that car multiple times on a simulator and things like that, and just seeing it in person, nothing gives me a rush like seeing that car, and, uh, a little bit of a transition, I do actually work for Porsche at a experience center opened in Pickering, the first one in Canada, so, obviously, being around the atmosphere of Porsche for such a very long time and, getting used to their whole fleet, the GT4 RS definitely sticks out to me.
Yeah. Out of all the cars, I think that the Porsches have the most comfortable seats.
There you
They
go.
they really, really do. Just fact from Dan. Okay, so we went to the K1 and we tried racing. You dipped your toes in the water. It became an immediate obsession for a 6-year-old guy. Let's talk about stepping into starting to be competitive. Um, that must mean that we did it enough that we the parents were like, "Okay, we need to get your own cart." So, as what age were you when you got your own first cart? And tell me a little bit about that cart.
Yeah, so a little bit before that, I started at age I'm pretty sure I was 9 when I started to ride and drive go-karting, and did 3 years in that, and by the end of the 3 years, I'd won every regional championship in Ontario there was to win. So, my parents just saw it as there's, like, nothing else for him here. We have to It's better to be a small fish in a big pond than a big fish in a small pond. That's the way they phrase it to me. So at age 12, I was able to get my own go kart. It was a junior light Briggs, and right out the gate, it was felt like immediate home for me. It was the closest jump to your own go-kart you can go from where I would drive to a Briggs, and from there, I did a single year in that, and it was finished 2nd in the Canadian Nationals, crowning me the vice champion and things like that. It was immediate success right out the gate, so clear indication for my parents that it was the right decision to do, and then from there, just worked up the ladder.
Okay. So, how was it did the cart feel different? Like, you're going from an electric cart, which is kind of just immediate power, you touch it and it goes, and you're switching to a gas engine, right?
Exactly, yeah.
What did you start noticing as the difference? I mean, I would imagine that you're stepping up when you're going into, your own kind of competitive car, but what did you feel differences in it?
The biggest thing that came down to it, going from a K1 speed go-kart, you're on your own in a commercial environment, just kinda having fun. The second you move into owning your own go-kart and competing against others, it's a completely different atmosphere in terms of wheel-to-wheel racing. You're up against other 12, 13-year-olds that have the same hunger as you, still have the same drive as you, so when you're going wheel to wheel for them, nobody's just gonna point you by or let you pass. So the biggest thing wasn't the go kart itself; it was who you were driving against, and I feel like that's what shaped me really early on to be able to fight, have my elbows out, fight for my own.
And I somehow I neglected to ask this, but the very first time that you won, the first time you got on the podium, do you remember that time? And I mean, that I would imagine that fueled a lot of the addiction as well. But do you remember that time specifically? And can you tell me about that?
Exactly, yeah. So it was my 3rd race weekend in a Briggs go kart at Goodwood Kartways, the one I had mentioned previously, and was able to get my first win after a last lap pass. And the biggest thing that set a standard and kind of theme throughout my racing career was there was still more. The fact that you're standing at the front step of the podium, the fact that you won the race, why didn't you win it by another 5 seconds? That's at the age of 12 already was in my head, and when I told my parents that, they were like, wow, this kid like has dreams, he has aspirations, not just to be the best, but to be the best version of himself in that way. And from there, that kind of set the tone for the rest of my racing career. And I still have that kind of message playing in my head all the time.
Well, how was it also going, from the local racing club to starting to step out into more of a national and not only that, international competition? Like, and at such a darn young age, how old were you when you started to really expand and travel?
So when I was racing in Italy, I won the Canadian Nationals here. The biggest race there was to win. I was given the offer to race in Italy in the super finals. So drivers across the world coming here to compete in a one race decides all kind of format. And it was just unreal. Like words genuinely can't describe the amount of competition. In Canada, there's around when I was racing, about 15 drivers could fight for the win on end, and then you'd get a couple that would fall off towards the end of the race. But in Italy, there was 120 drivers that could have won at any given second. It was just the hunger, the drive of every driver there. If you're in the super finals, you've earned your right to be there. So nobody's just paying their way to be there and things like that. It's full determination. So when you're talking about the driving style or the entire atmosphere, it's just a completely different level. It's the highest you can go in go-karting. So, with that being said, it's I had to bring my A game.
So, man, if you so you're 10 years into it right now. The first time you jumped into a car was when you were 6, you're 16 years old. How's it progressed? Do you notice every year or every season that there's like a marked change? Do you feel the steps as you're climbing up the ladder?
100%, yeah. So, the way the ladder usually works in motorsports is once you get to the top 3 in a given category, it's, uh relatively smart decision to move up, and majority of the time it's you move up and you're back to the mid pack or around there. So every category you'd move up when I went from, let's say, a ride and drive to owning my own go-kart to eventually going to two-stroke, which go up to 120 kilometers an hour. Each step from there, it was not right out of the gate winning. Um, but again, I'd spend the most amount of time on the track. I was there the earliest, last one at the track, getting as many laps in as I can to better myself as a driver. And ultimately, that's what led to my success. By the year after I would start a category, I was winning races. And like to put into perspective, like I said, I bought my first go kart at age 12, and by 14, I was the Canadian national champion, which is very rare to hear when you talk to other drivers who have won it before. Some of them bought their own go kart or their parents bought them for when they were around 6 or 7. And still, some of them to this day haven't won the national championship. And with that being said, it's just goes to show what dedication and pure talent can get you in the sport.
So you go from your electric cart to a Briggs& and Stratton gas cart. Now we're entering the F-1600. I guess at this point, we're just getting to a larger and larger car and a larger engine as we keep moving up. Well, what was it like when you first sat down in the 'cause these look like Indy cars. Like, they more so than the go-karts do. They just look like kind of a smaller Indy car. So how was your thought about sitting down in that car for the first time? And tell me a little bit about the differences of as you're leveling up, just how you can feel different idiosyncrasies in the car and different more technical things. Plus, you're probably getting a lot more knowledge and understanding of how the car reacts and all of that that you can use to work with your team. But let's just really dive into how the difference of stepping up from level to level to level and how it is now where you are now in the 1600.
Yeah, so making the jump from go-karting to F-1600 is no easy task. It's going from a car where you're 2 inches off the ground, can make micro adjustments, and you're around somebody close, to racing a fully manual car that's 2 times the length and can go up to 210 kilometers an hour. So, that just alone, the statistics there show how much of a jump it can be. But the biggest daunting thing that came upon me was the shifting gears. In a go kart, it's a single speed, so you're just worried about turning the steering wheel, pressing the gas and brake a couple times. But stepping into that 1600, it's so much more about getting the most out of the car and treating it like your baby almost. It's what you can do to keep the car steady throughout the whole race and managing the wheel-to-wheel racing. In go-karting, you can have quite a bit of contact side by side, but with the F-1600, the wheels just stick out and are out in the open, so if 90% of the time when there's wheel-to-wheel contact in those, it's somebody's going overboard. So, being able to have risk management, but also going for it 9 times out of 10, it's definitely the biggest challenge is the speed aspect and just shifting, like, not used to that.
So as you were racing before, was your family, like your pops or something, helping out with the mechanical side of stuff? And does or who was doing that? Because I would imagine moving into the 1600, like now we have to have a little more of a crew to be doing the work, I would imagine.
Yeah, in F-1600, I'm very thankful to have a whole crew behind me, and, it's an arrive and drive program, so all of them are dedicated towards me, and my parents, are you could call it fans at this point. They don't really have any mechanical responsibilities, but it was completely different in go-karting. My mom was my mechanic for all 5 years, and which was quite rare to see. She was the only woman on the grid 90% of the time, and but she could do anything anybody else could, which was an even greater factor. Like the video of me winning the national championship, she was the first one there on the fence, giving me the two thumbs up and things like that. So throughout my whole career, she's been by my side mechanically on my go-kart, and it's been great to have her. I'm very thankful.
And I foolishly said your pops just because, that's what I thought. That's a really interesting point you just brought up. How did you is that what your mom does? Is she in a mechanical type of person? Is that's a very unique.
No, exactly, and before my go-karting and racing career, she hadn't touched a wrench since high school. Her love, you could call it, for mechanicking came, she had an auto shop teacher that used to race the Canadian NASCAR series, and this was back in, like, the '80s. So, she did all 4 years in an automotive program in high school, and after that, kinda fell off, like, nothing really to do with mechanicking or automotive after that. But the second she got a whiff of me wanting to do go karting and that I needed a mechanic, she jumped right on it, took the initiative, and um, took it upon herself to learn every little detail in the go kart that would make me go faster.
So interesting, so interesting. So, was your whole family involved in this too, or was it really you kind of paired off more with her?
No, yeah, my dad was a big part of it as well. He was more of the managing side, so he was looking for the best opportunities to join a team or what made most sense for my racing career. But both of them played a huge role in my success in the sport so far, so I'm incredibly thankful. And they've been learning alongside me. That, like I said before multiple times, they didn't come from a motorsports background at all. So this entire journey, it's just been a learning curve for all of us.
So cool, so cool. Okay, tell me a little bit about this Bob McCollum scholarship and how that what that is and how that came about.
Exactly, yeah. So Bob McCallum used to race open wheel vintage cars, and unfortunately, he did pass away recently. But he took it upon himself. The scholarship is awarded to a rookie driver, which happens to be myself, with it being my first year in F1600, and it granted me a much better chance and opportunity to succeed in the sport. So I'm very thankful for Bob and his family for granting me with that opportunity, and it's been a crucial support in helping me succeed this year in F1600.
And so what does your kind of weekly practice and racing schedule look like, and how does that mix into your regular life?
Yeah, so, my whole life is racing if it comes down to it. Every night and day, I'm thinking about who can I reach out to, what more can I do? And when it comes down to my daily routine, I spend almost every day in the simulator. I have it right next to me and just practicing. That's a very, underutilized tool, I feel, in motorsports, but recently it has been coming up. The simulator is the best way to learn a new car, a new track, and things like that. Before my first race weekend, I couldn't tell you how many laps I did at Mosport with the F1600. It was as much laps as I could do to get a feel for the car and things like that. And immediately it showed. The first ever time I drove the car, I was lights out right out the get go. So, with that being said, it's a huge tool for me and I do spend a lot of time on it. And then as well, I'm in the gym 5 days a week. And a lot of the track stuff you see on track, that's great, but also building a personal brand. So I'm doing the best I can to reach out to potential sponsors or somebody that can help support me because nobody in this sport makes it alone. So it's building those relationships, building those partnerships that inevitably bring you to where you want to be at the pinnacle of motorsports.
Now, how do your people that you go to school with, they're like as we were kind of talking before, they're playing hockey or football or something like that. How does your racing mix in? What do people think about that? Because it's definitely a little different. Or is there like a group of people that do race that you hang out with at school?
That's definitely not the case. I'm the only race car driver at my school. But what comes out of it, I'll have a lot of people since a lot of us are turning 16, 17 now and thinking about getting a first car. I've had numerous people come up to me and be like, "Hey man, which car should I get?" which is obviously a very broad question. There's a lot that goes into that decision, but most people know that I do race cars, but definitely not to the degree or the level that they think. They kind of think it's a recreational thing that um, I'm doing it just for kind of shits and gigs. But no, this is my career path. This is what I want to do with my life. And it's kind of hard to get that point across to some of my friends, but the ones that do understand it really understand that it's a business, not just a hobby and things like that. So it's definitely a bit of give and take when it comes down to it.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, now 16 years old, you still got school left, maybe college afterwards. What are your academic goals, or what are we, and obviously, well, maybe obviously, maybe not obviously. It's always good to have backup plans, and you never know where things lead you to. So putting a solid foundation under you is important. What do you see yourself doing as far as, further education and career stuff that mixes in with racing?
Yeah, exactly. So plan A, 100% become a race car driver. Plan B, follow plan A. Plan C, stick to the school route. I have a 92 average right now, and with that, I can get into multiple schools and things like that. And my aspirations would be going towards the mechanical engineering side. So the Canada and specifically Ontario has a lot of great programs for that. So if it comes down to it, in about a year and a half's time, when I'm looking to apply for university, there's many good programs to get into, and then as well, looking in the business side as well. Managing a race team, the kind of story that sticks out to me is Zach Brown. He went the route of a race car driver, realized that this takes a lot more than he signed up for, switched the route, and now is the team principal of McLaren F1. So that kind of story sticks out to me, and not just having your mindset of becoming a race car driver. Obviously, that's everyone's goal, but when it comes down to it, there's so many other places to land in motorsports. I'd be happy with a numerous different options.
Very cool, very cool. And you have the forethought, so you're planning for the future. And I think even all of those things that you're learning are going to work out very well for you as you're driving. Now, are do you do you and your are do you, how do you participate or contribute to the mechanical side of the F-1600?
Of the F-1600, I'm a little limited because obviously it's a completely new atmosphere. Very little of what you learn on a go-kart translates, but I'm doing the best that I can, constantly asking questions. When it comes down to it, when I'm driving the vehicle, there's a couple changes I can make in the cars, so that's brake bias and anti-roll bar. Both of those change how the car feels and what I want out of it. So learning what I can change in the car is definitely the first step in learning the vehicle that you're driving. So I took it upon myself, get a feel for what each change does. So if I'm feeling that, hey, I need a little bit more front grip, then I can make the changes to do so accordingly. But when it comes down to the engine and different changes that somebody can make when the car is off track, I'm still pretty limited there, but I'm doing the best I can to learn as I go.
And I imagine you just start, as you're moving up in these cars, start to feel more things and just more of the idiosyncrasies of the car itself, and which is really cool. Um, how about like, what do you do? You sound very focused on racing, but what do you do in your relaxation time, your unplug time? How do you spend some time just for yourself?
So I've kind of not trained myself, but took it upon myself to when I'm relaxing, I should still trying to do something to better myself. So when I'm relaxing, I'm either just scrolling on Instagram, reaching out to different people there, or just getting ideas and content of what other people are doing. And then as well, this is kind of a little sad thing. I like to build puzzles with my mom and things like that, but it's kind of just preparing the brain and doing the best you can to stay fresh because nobody just wants to go off and like go hang out with your friends 5 or 6 days a week and just kind of forget completely about racing. If you do that, you'll notice you'll start to slip very quickly. So, 7 days a week, racing is on my mind, and I'm doing the best I can to move forward.
Now we've established that you didn't come from a big racing family background, and you've did that, and just that fact alone means that you've had to fight harder than most of the other kids out there. Um, how's that shaped you coming from not that background of racing? How's that shaped you as a racer?
Yeah, so the way my parents have engraved in it, and I didn't notice at first, but what they taught me is hard work beats talent 10 times out of 10. So, like I was saying, I'm always the first one to arrive at the track, done the most laps out of anybody, and last one to leave, and always trying to find ways to improve, whether that's through data, um, through telemetry, and just learning about the car as much as I can to get a feel for it and really become one with the car. So, when it comes down to it, that's the biggest thing that plays a role.
What does what does grit mean to you in racing?
Just constant dedication to the sport. Nothing is going to turn me away. No doesn't mean no. There's always another way to get what you're looking for in terms of sponsorships, in terms of support. So if somebody I've had times where people have told me I'm just not ready yet, and I take it upon myself to do everything I can to where if I'm given the shot again, I'm 100% ready, 110% ready.
Well, so when things get tough or you're not having good days or, sometimes you just get dealt a crappy hand for a few days, how do you handle that, and how do you work yourself through that when things get tough?
I've been taught to be very humble in the sport. So when there's times where the weekend doesn't go as planned or where I get the short end of the stick, there's always another race. So don't dwell on what went wrong. Always try to find a way to better yourself. Look at it as if you had somebody beat you, what did they do to beat you? There's always something to learn, always something to build off of. So the fact that you lost a race, you could call it, there's something to take away from that and something that will make you a better driver in the long run.
Now, if you were to talk to kids that don't come from a racing background, maybe they don't have the resources to do it, but that's their dream. What would you tell them? How should they approach trying to break into this sport?
Just be around the track as much as you can. I've had friends through motorsports that just simply, like me, didn't come from a racing family, but had a burning passion for the sport. So whether they have a drive or not, just being around the track, getting to know all the people that support the race series, support the race teams, you'll eventually get a little in that'll get you either in a race team or in the series. Well, you can build off from there, but no, the biggest thing is just being around the racetrack. That's the biggest advice I can give.
Let's kind of talk about your long term or the big vision goals. What is the vision? Where do you see this going in the next 5 years, 10 years?
So the plan right now with sticking to that 1600 route, it kind of broadens what I can go into. You look at a lot of drivers in multiple series, so whether that's WEC, Formula One, or IndyCar, I bet you a couple of them have come from F1600. I don't bet, I know, I've looked it up. But no, it's definitely a great foundation. And from here, my aspirations is to be on the top step of the Indy 500. Winning that race is the pinnacle of motorsports, the biggest race of the year by far. And winning that race, it's every young racer's dream when you talk to any of them. Even Alex Palou recently, who just won this year's, he said multiple times his career wouldn't have been fulfilled if he hadn't won that race. So it just goes to show how much value it holds, and that's ultimately my goal.
Now I'm back from Indianapolis, and I've interviewed a lot of guys, Al Unser Jr. and Paul Page, and people from Indy 500 world. Um, and I've interviewed a lot of the younger drivers like yourself. Generally speaking, the younger drivers want to race F1 or something with a whole bunch of turns and twists and stuff in it. What is it to you that's more appealing about that oval track?
It's a lot anybody can learn a track and learn a car and do it the best of their capabilities, but at an oval, it's all about strategy, who can play the better game, and that's something I've been told and done the best to develop as my own is it's when you're racing, it's a 2, 3 hour chess match. It's learning what your opponent is like, how you can take advantage of them and things like that. That's the biggest thing with IndyCar. Anybody can go around a circle, but it's who can play the strategy, play the fuel tire game, and things like that. There's so many moving components that isn't just about turning the steering wheel and pressing the gas and brake. So that's what appeals to me most, and just ultimately the atmosphere is just unmatched.
And now as you stepped into the F1600, is this kind of the first level or first step where you can start to, like, feel drafting in the car and or is that it
So in go-karting, there's very little drafting. When you get to the four-stroke and kind of lower levels, there is enough to make a difference, but it's you don't rely on it too much. In that 1600, I'm bump drafting. So even though our cars are shaped like bullets and there's like a 2 inches where the car is actually flat, I'm making contact with my teammates and competitors to try to get a fast lap or push somebody by. So the draft in F1600 is huge. So at Mosport, the back straightaway, the entire race is from turn 5 to turn 8 because from turn 5 to turn 8, it's just one large straightaway, and you have enough time and enough track length to get fully alongside and pass somebody before the next corner. So in F1600, the race is entirely made up of drafting and who you can work with. So that's been one of my biggest learning curves and things like that to get used to the draft, learn how to take full advantage of it, and ultimately use it to win races.
now, part of racing, unfortunately, is people get into accidents and things like that happen. Has that affected you? And if it has, how do you climb back up on the horse, so to speak, afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. So this is my rookie year in not just F1600, but in cars. So learning the wheel to wheel aspect is definitely a big hill to climb. I've unfortunately had a couple times where I've had incidents with people, but thankfully nothing major where I've caused them or myself a lot of damage. It's been a bunch of learning moments. So in F1600, there's a lot of rookie drivers like myself who are using it as a foundation standpoint to move up in the racing career. So there's thankfully a lot of understanding when and if there is contact that just learn from it, doing your best to either not let it happen again, and if it happens again, make sure it's not your fault. So, with that being said, it's definitely a big part of that 1600 racing is the wheel-to-wheel racing with the draft and everything like that. You're inches away from somebody, but going 200 kilometers an hour. So, the draft and the wheel-to-wheel racing, combined is a huge aspect.
Yeah, I can only imagine. What would it mean to you if you do when you do make it to the Indy 500 to be representing Canada on that stage?
It would mean the absolute world to me. It's the pinnacle of motorsports, like I said, and there's no way for me to make it on my own. So I'm doing the best in my capabilities to build the right relationships, like you're saying with Ralph. He's hopefully going to be a huge stepping stone in my career towards Indy 500. So with that being said, it's building the right foundation, surrounding yourself with good people that want to see you there as well.
Okay, give me 1 second.
All good? How's it going so far?
Oh, man, we're doing great. We're doing great.
Beautiful.
Flip back over here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, like, sponsorships and social media and public relations and all that stuff. Um, You're coming up in a really interesting time in the world where, gosh, we can make videos just like this and they can go on YouTube and Facebook, and you have to constantly be putting yourself out there, especially as you're starting to look for sponsorships and ways to grow in racing. What's your strategy like for your social media, and who takes care of that for you, and what are your thoughts on that?
In social media, I manage all of my platforms completely on my own. My parents used to manage it for me when I was like 12, 13, but around the 14, 15 age mark, I was like, okay, um, I don't really want baby photos of me being posted, so let me take care of this on my own. And from there, I've been able to grow my content to over 2,000 followers across Facebook and Instagram. And some of my videos have reached millions of views, and it's less about doing personal content because very few amount of people care about like your results and things like that, but it's finding what engages your community. So I've done iRacing, which is a simulator platform, a lot of content about that, and also what it's was like for me switching from go-karting to cars, which engulfs a wide variety of racers. So it covers people in go-karting and people in cars, and most people that you talk to that are in cars right now started in go-karting, so it's kind of building off of that platform, and with social media, it's a huge part in looking for sponsors. When you approach a sponsor, somebody that you're hoping that can support you, it's not only what they can do for you, but what you can do for them. So, the reason I've again built that platform on Instagram and Facebook with millions of views is to be able to show a sponsor like, hey, with your logo or your support or your service, I can show that to millions of people and get engagement on that. So being able to provide something to your sponsor and less of it just being kind of a charity or just here's some money, that's very rare to come upon. So it's being able to provide them with as much as possible.
Now, what social media content works the best for you? What seems to perform the best, and which platform seems to work the best for you?
So my greatest success comes from Instagram, and the videos that do the best are ones that a lot of people can relate to. So not one specifically about F1600 or something personal about me. It's nine times out of ten something that's can engulf a wide community. So I've had a video where it was just me racing one of my close friends, and the caption was having that one person you can race really close with, tag that person below. And that got like 1.5 million views just from so many people being able to relate to it, not just from a karting standpoint and not just from an F1600 standpoint. Anybody that's raced close to somebody before can relate to the video. And it's not just that, it's like I just said, being able to relate to a video is the biggest thing that drives connections and activations in your posts.
That is so cool, so cool. And so, have you, from your posts that get these great amount of views, super jealous, I will tell you that. I am. Have you had any, like, really cool moments where, like, somebody big or somebody reached out to you and made contact with you from some of your posts?
Yeah, so nothing yet in terms of sponsorship, but I've had other drivers reach out to me and be like, "Hey, this what you're doing is really cool." Like being able to get millions of views as a racer is quite rare. You don't usually see it without somebody paying a lot of money. So I've done it completely on my own, just learning from scratch, learning what does well, learning what doesn't. And like you're saying, a couple people have reached out to me, other racers, and be like, "Hey, man, like, how did you get to that point? Like, how do you make videos like that or things like that?" So less about the sponsors reaching out to me, but a lot of other drivers have asked questions and just said, "Hey, good job."
Okay. If, your brand, so Menezes Racing, tell me about the brand and what the brand that you're projecting is. What does your brand mean to you?
So, brand to me is just hard work beats talent 10 times out of 10 and kind of the underdog story. Like we've talked about for the past hour, I didn't come from a racing family. I didn't come from deep pockets. It's just pure talent, pure dedication to the sport. And ultimately, that's the image and brand I'm trying to put out there, show everybody that I'm here, gonna work my butt off and do everything I can to make it to the top.
And have you secured any sponsorships yet?
Yeah, so to date, I've had a few, nothing title sponsors, like anything that will get me to IndyCar yet. But with my partnership with Ralph Hansen and others, it's building the platform to where if I'm able to get, actually, I should say, when I'm able to get that opportunity, I have everything set in stone where I can provide as much as possible to them and not just be asking for money.
And that is actually really, really important. What does if a sponsor is watching this, what does a sponsor get when they sync up with your team?
Yeah, so it's not just, charity, you can call it. I'm not trying to take your money, it's building a partnership. So, when you look at a lot of different drivers in either Formula 1 or IndyCar, the brand names or sponsors that are backing them, those drivers, when they're off track, they're doing as much as they can to promote their product, and I'm approaching it the same way. So like you were saying with my social media, um when I get the opportunity to, I'm doing my best to promote them to a wide audience, and so that's on the social media side, and then as well, when it comes to the instant receivables and things like that, um, the kind of spin I'm taking on it is providing their clients with as much return on investment as possible. If, let's say, they can pay me X amount of dollars, but they can bring a client to one of my races and show them a great time and things like that, and they end up winning over that client, and for triple X amount of dollars, then that's a good return on investment and things like that. So I feel like that's the key thing I'm touching on, the ROI for each company that either sponsors me or supports me. Um, I'm doing everything in my power to make that as great as possible.
Okay. And for anybody who's out there watching and they wanted to get involved, first, how do they follow you on social media and what can they do to become more involved with you and your brand?
Yeah, so in this video below, we'll have all my socials tagged, but it's at team_Menezes, so my last name, and then underscore racing. And from there, I post regular updates on my results. And unfortunately, none of them are live streamed. But when I get to that point, obviously, just watching the races, keeping up to date with what I'm doing, that's the best thing you can do.
Okay. I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you.
There we go.
You don't got to think about them too much. Just give me some answers. Favorite racetrack you've ever driven on?
Simulator or real life?
Might as well give me both.
There you go. So on a simulator, my favorite track to race is either Spa or I'm blanking on the name, Suzuka. So I know those are pretty big Formula One tracks, but to race them on a GT4, GT3, or something low horsepower, they provide some of the best racing and it's a lot of fun. And then in real life, I'm still limited to what I've driven, but nothing can beat a home track like Mosport. It's a lot of fast sweeping corners, and when it comes down to it, horsepower wins at that track 10 times out of 10.
All right. First thing you're going to do after you win the Indy 500.
Um, that's a good one. Buy a nice car. By that point, I'll have put all of my money towards trying to win that race. So by the end, hopefully with a good bonus, land myself something that actually represents what I can do.
All right. Do you have like a pre-song hype song or pre-race hype song that you listen to get in the zone?
Yeah. So it's an older song, but "Where's Your Head At?" Yeah, that's probably my go-to.
Okay. Your go-to post-race meal.
Post-race meal, on the way back home from Mossburg, which I'm usually racing, a nice Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich never, goes unappreciated.
Okay, what's one thing that fans might be surprised to learn about you?
Um, A lot of actually, the funny thing is a lot of my social media is done by me, and all of my contacts are done by me. So, when you look at that today, a lot of people that are up and coming drivers like that, they have either somebody managing for them or somebody supporting them in terms of social media and reaching out to contacts. It's all done on my end. So, I'm emailing people, keeping contacts and things like that, and then doing all of my social media. A lot of people are surprised about that, and I'm doing it all on my own.
The best piece of advice you've been given.
There's always somebody faster than you. You're never the best out there. There's always more to learn. So I've always kept that in my head and never happy with the first place, always looking for how I could have won the race more, how I could have made less mistakes or things like that. Um, so yeah, the best advice is there's always somebody faster than you. So do your best to be as fast as that.
Okay, if you could go back to the 7-year-old Christian stepping out of that cart, what would you tell him?
First of all, buy Bitcoin. Second of all, just stay true to yourself. This is what you want to do with the rest of your life. So do everything in your power to put yourself in a position to continue this path and build stepping stones to ultimately make it in the sport.
And what so far, what has been the biggest lesson that racing has taught you?
Um, be honest. Like, there's a lot of people who actually, I shouldn't say a lot. There's a handful of people who um either manipulate the sport or things like that and do what's best for them. But when it comes down to it, just being honest, if you make a mistake, own up to it. If there's something that you could have done better, um, recognize that and just do the best you can to be the better person.
What does success mean to you in both in racing and in life?
Success means to me that never being lazy. You never hear somebody that's had a huge success story and they've just kind of sat on their bum and let things fall into place. Success is earned. So going out, doing everything you can to follow your passion. It doesn't even have to be motorsports. It can be whatever you're passionate about, and you have to dedicate yourself 100% to that certain thing. And that's what I've done for motorsports. Just again, with success, it's a lot of what I've done is working hard. So, like I'm saying, long days at the track, learning as much as I can about not just the car, but driving styles to widen, branch off from my toolbox of current knowledge and try to get any more out of the car as possible. So, yeah,
Yep. Outstanding, outstanding. Okay. This has been a really, really cool story. I love the underdog story. I think everybody loves the underdog story. So that's gonna play out well. And I'd lean really into that because just good. People feel that in their heart. You know what I mean? If you have a
yeah.
final message that you want to kick out there to your fans, supporters, and future sponsors, why should they join this ride now?
It's the early stages and this isn't ending anytime soon, so get on early while you can.
All right. And then my last thing I'm going to say here is you got to promise after you do win that Indy 500 to give me another interview. You can't be forgetting Dan.
Of course, I never will.
Awesome,
Amazing.
awesome,
I'm really happy with how this went, and thank you again.
awesome. Thank you so much.